So this is the most wonderful time of the year, right? And that's the way the story goes. And that can make it challenging for those of us when that's not the case. There's a lot of supposed tos and a lot of obligations and a lot of potential difficulties in this time. Friends and family often ask, me and my wife, like, an is this a difficult time for you guys? Is it an easy time for you, like with clients, and like all clients must come in and they're so happy. Like, no, this is actually like some of our busy season because this is when clients tend to have like the hardest time, though, like the need of the most, like kids coming home from college and either the kids having issue or the parents are having issue with that. The obligations with having to go to a certain place and trying to manage and juggle all the different energies involved. Something like tradition or breaking tradition. There are a bunch of people I know who are dealing with grief of having lost in this past year or around this time last year. This is holidays tend to kick up that side as well. It's not necessarily the most wonderful time of the year, although that is the moniker that it's given. And regardless, this training of mindfulness, this training that we sit in meditation, is one that can be very helpful through these times. Right? And I've said this before. This is not about just painting on a happy, rosy face and everything is wonderful and happy and okay, and just ignoring the crap. That's not what meditation is about. Mindfulness is about being with whatever is here. So if there is something that is uncomfortable, it's okay. It's about giving yourself that space of permission to say, this is what I'm feeling, and this is what's here, and this is my experience, and I'm okay with that. Doesn't mean I like it. It doesn't mean that it's going to be happy. But there's a point of like, well, we have to say, we start with this is what's here. We honor our emotions. We honor our experience, even if it's unpleasant. My parents came to visit this past weekend, which always provides fodder for my talks. And one of the things that came up, it was actually a very lovely visit, but one of the things that came up was my mom was sharing some of her postpartum issues after I was born with my wife. And really, for my mom, it was just an opportunity for her to just share her story. She wasn't looking for validation. She wasn't looking for my wife to say anything or do anything about it. She wasn't looking for me to say anything or do anything, but just acknowledging this has been in me for 37 years, 38 years, and now like I need to have an opportunity to get this out. Just that alone is healing. Just that alone is helpful. It's saying this is emotion. I have a student, I sometimes call her a teacher, a student of mine, calls emotions emotion, energy in motion. And if we don't allow it to move, then we're actually stifling it. Its natural thing is it wants to move up and out. It wants to be expressed. It wants to be acknowledged. So one of the healthiest things we can do for ourselves is to simply acknowledge, say, this is not cool. I'm not happy with this, but this is here, right? This step one, this is here. This is my experience. As a result of my mom's stories, I've had, stuff in the last couple of days thinking about my reaction to what she shared. And one of the biggest things for me is just to sit with those feelings. And it comes in waves. There comes in waves of lots of sadness and anger and frustration, and then numbness, where I took a 2-hour nap this afternoon because it was intense. But this part of the process of letting it move. This is my experience. It sucks, but the way through the way to the other side of the discomfort is through the discomfort. Something that is inside is not something that we can necessarily just kind of sidestep and just like, well, this is inside me, but I can just ignore it and it's going to go away. Right? It's what we like to do a lot of times. It's a common thing. Denial is a very predictable and typical human response to difficult emotions. But it actually does not solve anything. Right? I often liken it if there's a physical situation, and if you're nauseous. Now, I hate being nauseous, and I absolutely hate vomiting. It is probably like the worst biological thing for me, and I'll do everything I can to avoid it. But like sitting there, you're nauseous, nauseous. That's an unpleasant experience. Vomiting is also a very unpleasant experience. But once you're finished, you feel a lot better. Now, I could, and I've done this, where I fight it. I don't want to do that. I don't want to go through the uncomfortable experience. I don't want to go through it. I don't want to go through it. So instead, that, whatever unhappy food makes its way through my digestive system for the next day and a half, and I feel crappy for a day and a half, really crappy. But if I'd said, all right, let me just go through this. Let me just acknowledge this and say, this is what's here. How do I move through this and go through the discomfort? I'd feel better in about 45 seconds. So this is not about avoiding the stuff. And meditation mindfulness is not about everything is happy and sunshine and roses. But one of the things that I'm going to invite all of us to do is, in this time where things can be particularly difficult. And of course, this extends, I know it's not the difficult times end on December 26th and we never have one hard time again. This is applicable any time of year. But for us to acknowledge, take the time and say, this is what I'm feeling. And acknowledge it to yourself. Write it, talk to a friend about it, talk to a therapist about it. There's lots of ways that you can do that. And it's expressing it for the sake of expressing it. It's not expressing it so you receive a reaction back. This is not trying to bait somebody into comforting you. This is not trying to trying to manipulate somebody to do something in response to what you are experiencing. This is about saying, this is what I'm experiencing and I'm sharing it because it needs to be shared. It needs to move. This is energy and motion, needs to come up and out. And that does not necessarily require somebody else to read it or hear it or respond to it. This is seeing it for the sake of seeing it. So it's a really powerful experience, and it holds us a way for we can step out of our own way. Like I said before, I call myself a personal freedom advocate. This is a powerful, powerful way to give yourself some more freedom. Is to free your emotions instead of keeping them locked inside. So I will invite you to consider that. And I thought of this quote from William Shakespeare, who said, "There is no good or bad, but thinking makes it so." So we like to assign sadness as bad, or grief is bad, or anger is bad, and happiness is good, and joy is good, and pleasure is good. But that's just what we're thinking. It's just a sensation. The mindfulness approach saying, this is what's here. So if we can treat these things which we might label as unpleasant the same way that we treat things that we label as pleasant, that is going to lead us to a place of freedom. We are no longer going to be holding ourselves hostage, holding these emotions hostage. It doesn't mean that the experience is going to be fun. It doesn't mean that if we are mindful, all of a sudden the people around us are suddenly going to be nice to us. And there's steps to take beyond that, right? And this also doesn't mean that we just allow people to treat us poorly and say, well, I'm just mindful that I'm feeling my boundaries are taken down, or I'm feeling mindful, I'm aware that I'm feeling put out right now. It's not about just acknowledging it and not doing anything about it. But the first step is to acknowledge this is what's here. And saying, this is my experience, and I need that to be voiced. So I'll invite you to consider that, how that applies to you for tonight, for this week, for this season. And thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for your attention.